Salutations everyone, and welcome once more to my series exploring the flags of Europa Universalis IV. My name is Videosyncratic, and for anyone joining me from the previous episode, my apologies that this video ended up taking a week longer than I had originally anticipated it to. In this episode, I am tackling the symbols used to represent the tags of the so-called Low Countries, as defined by the game itself. These include countries which are located in the game-defined areas of Frisia, Holland, Netherlands, Flanders and Wallonia. From a modern perspective, these areas cover all of the Netherlands, Belgium and Luxembourg, but also have a little overspill into northwestern Germany. By my count, there are 11 tags for this region, so it is more important than ever that there should be a table of contents pinned in the comment section below to allow for easy navigation to any flag you may have a particular interest in. Now, without further ado, the first tag to be covered in this episode is the County of Flanders and its successor states, beginning the game in personal union with Burgundy. That will become a running theme in a moment, apologies. The arms used to represent Flanders feature a sable lion rampant, that is, rearing up on its hind legs, on a gold field, and this design is sometimes called the Flemish Lion. I chose to begin this episode with the Flemish Lion, as it is likely the first of any of the arms of the Low Countries to bear a lion on its charge. As I'm sure you will come to see in a moment, this design has been highly influential, and a number of other arms in the region feature variations on this theme. The image is taken from the coat of arms of the Counts of Flanders, the feudal rulers of the territory. The first appearance of these arms was on the seal of Count Philip I of the House of Alsace in 1163. The usage of a lion rampant was possibly chosen from the use of it by some of Philip's family members. For example, his cousin and his uncle were associated with the symbol since at least 1158 and 1155 respectively. Perhaps somewhat similar to the case of the Welsh dragon, although the lion had been used to represent Flanders for centuries, it only officially became so relatively recently when it was made the official symbol of the Flemish community of Belgium in 1973. The Flemish lion became associated with the Flemish nationalist movement from approximately the middle 19th century onwards. Relating to this, there is actually some controversy over the colour of the tongue and claws of the lion. In the flag used in-game, these are coloured black, whereas in most depictions they are instead red. The use of red became a matter of contention amongst more radical Flemish nationalists, as this means the arms share all of the colours of the Belgian flag. In some eyes at least, the use of the black-tongued and clawed variant has become associated with the separatist aspects of the Flemish nationalist movement. I will now move on to the Duchy of Brabant, as the emblem used to represent it, taken from the coat of arms of the historic territory, is essentially an inverted form of that used by Flanders. Like Flanders before it, Brabant too begins the game in personal union with Burgundy. The arms of Brabant comprise a gold lion rampant on a sable field, although it should be noted that this particular lion definitively has a red tongue and claws. I've actually briefly touched on the Brabantine lion before, when I covered the lion rampant used on the flag of Northumberland. The earliest usage of a lion rampant may have been by Lambert I, the Count of Louvain. The descendants of Lambert would ultimately become the Landgraves and later still the Dukes of Brabant, and it is through this lineage that the lion rampant made its way onto the coat of arms of the Percy family of Northumberland. As for its first documented use, it appears in a town seal in 1306. Regardless of when it was first used, what is undeniable is that the present-day Belgian flag takes its colours directly from this design, and it is still used as the main charge on the coat of arms of the three subnational divisions that still bear the name Brabant in the Low Countries today. Another emblem to use this same device is that of the County of Holland, which depicts a red lion rampant with an azure tongue and claws placed on a gold field. Again, similar to both Flanders and Brabant, Holland begins the game under personal union with Burgundy. Like several of the symbols looked at so far, this symbol is taken directly from the coat of arms of the County of Holland, and it is said to have originated from its use by the Counts of Holland during the Crusades. The lion has a long-standing association with the Holy Land, due to comparisons made between the lion and the important biblical character of Judah in the Book of Genesis. This is further expanded on in the Book of Revelation, where references to the Lion of Judah have been interpreted to refer to Jesus Christ by theologians. Thus, the usage of a lion has been said to have been adopted by these counts while crusading in the Holy Lands to symbolise the so-called victorious Lion of Judah. Now we begin to move away from the simple palette swaps of the same design, while still retaining the general motif of the lion rampant. The next flag we come to is that used to represent the county of Hainaut, which does not exist at the start of the game, but can potentially rebel against Burgundy to gain their freedom. Their flag is a quartered design featuring 4 lions rampant on a gold field. The lions in the first and fourth quarters are black with red tongues and claws, while the ones in the second and third are red with blue tongues and claws. For the more attentive of you watching this video, you may have noticed that these are identical to the arms of Flanders and Holland respectively, and this is no accident. True to form, this quartering of arms stems from the kind of dynastic inheritance so characteristic of medieval European politics. These quartered arms date from the mid to late 13th century, during which the Wars of the Flemish Succession occurred, which concerned the legitimate inheritance of the counties of Flanders and Hainaut. In 1279, John II inherited the county of Hainaut. In addition to this, he claimed his right to the county of Flanders as part of this ongoing dispute, and so, instead of using the already existing arms of Hainaut, chose to use the arms of Flanders in order to stress these claims. John would later inherit the county of Holland in 1299, so his son and successor, William, quartered the arms of Holland with those of Flanders already in use. While William would later drop his claim to Flanders as part of the Peace of Paris, the usage of these arms to represent Hainaut would continue for centuries to come. Another flag to use lions rampant as its major motif is that of the Duchy of Gelre, which also goes by a number of other names including Gelders and Gelderland. This emblem comprises a gold lion rampant on an azure pale to the left, and a sable lion rampant on a gold pale to the right. In both instances, these lions have red tongues and claws. Similar to the case of Hainaut above, this example of impaled arms stems from dynastic inheritance. The older of the two motifs is the gold and blue half, which was adopted early in the 13th century to denote the military standing of the Counts of Gelre. This design originally featured a scattering of golden rectangles. In 1339, the County of Gelre was elevated to duchy status by the Holy Roman Emperor, and to coincide with this occasion, the rectangles were dropped, but the lion was embellished with an extra tail and a ducal coronet. Curiously, this feature is absent on the version featured in EU4. As for the other half, while the design is a perfect match to the Flemish lion, as far as I am aware, there is no inheritance from Flanders in this instance. Instead, the addition of the black lion came about when the Duke of Utrecht inherited Gelre in 1379, the black lion being taken from the coat of arms of the German House of Utrecht. The final lion rampant to be covered in this episode is that used by Luxembourg. Similar to the case of Hainaut, Luxembourg is not extant at game start, and is instead a part of Burgundy. However, should it gain independence, then it will represent the Duchy and later Grand Duchy of Luxembourg that still exists as a sovereign nation today. Like so many other emblems in this video, the flag used in-game is patterned on the coat of arms of the territory it represents. These arms have two distinctive components. The older of these is the red lion rampant, which is depicted with two tails, a golden crown, and gold tongue and claws. When imposed on a silver field, these arms were originally bore by Valoran III, who was the Duke of Limburg by birth and Count of Luxembourg by marriage. It was for this reason that he adopted a new set of arms with a twin-tailed lion, the two tails representing these two holdings. The second element is the striped background consisting of 10 stripes alternating between silver and blue. This new field was adopted by the son of Valoran III in 1247 when he became the Count of Luxembourg. These new arms were assumed to differentiate him from his half-brother, who had become the Duke of Limburg. The origin of this striking pattern is not known for certain, but during this period other branches of the House of Luxembourg assumed similar arms. This has led to some heraldists to surmise that the original Luxembourg dynasty may have used a striped banner. Now that the many flags featuring lions rampant have been covered, I can finally begin to cover designs with more unusual origins. That said, the flag used by Utrecht can hardly be said to be particularly intricate, as it simply comprises a diagonally divided field in red and white. In EU4, Utrecht represents the Bishopric of Utrecht, which existed from at least 1024. Utrecht was centred on the city of the same name, and was ruled by its prince-bishops, whom enjoyed the privilege of imperial immediacy. The flag used by Utrecht in-game is based on the modern flag and coat of arms of the city of Utrecht, which date from at least 1648 and likely come from much earlier. The Bishopric of Utrecht used a very different symbol bearing a white cross on a red field, somewhat reminiscent of the flags of Denmark or Switzerland. A variation of the flag of Utrecht features an image of St. Martin, the patron saint of the city, in the upper fly. This, or variations of this at least, appear to have been in use since at least 1537, as in that year, the Holy Roman Emperor Charles V ordered Utrecht to remove the image of the saint from its coat of arms. As for why he ordered this to take place is not exactly known, but one possibility is out of jealousy. It was Charles who had forcibly secularised and restructured Utrecht in 1528, and so in this interpretation, the image of the saint was too reminiscent of the city's still recent rulers. The emblem used by Liège is a fairly distinctive one, as it comprises a gold column supported by 3 lions superimposed on a crimson field. This tag represents the Bishopric of Liège, that existed without interruption from 980 to 1789. Like Utrecht, this was a Prince-Bishopric of the Holy Roman Empire. The emblem used in EU4 is taken from the central badge of the coat of arms of this historic polity, a device still used on the city arms of Liège today. This is a stylised type of stone monument called a perron, peculiar to the former lands of the Prince-Bishopric. While the style of these columns vary in each individual case, many of them are topped by a globus cruciger, that is, a crowned orb, as seen on this badge, and the especially grand one in the city of Liège itself also has statues of lions at its base. To be able to erect one of these columns, the towns of the bishopric had to be granted status as a good city. As a result, these monuments came to symbolise the local freedom and autonomy enjoyed by these towns, and so it is not surprising that many of these cities continue to use a perron on their coat of arms to this day. Now we move onto the area of Frisia for our next 2 flags. The first of these territories is Friesland, which is unusual in a number of ways, but perhaps most strikingly, it is one of the few republics in the Holy Roman Empire outside of Italy that is not also a free imperial city. Indeed, from 800 until its eventual subjugation to the Habsburgs in 1523, Frisia was devoid of any form of feudalism or serfdom, and as a result, this period has came to be known as the Freedom of the Frisians. The flag used by Friesland in EU4 is based on the flag currently used by the Dutch province of the same name. However, I will confess that it is not an exact match, although the same symbols are present in both designs. This provincial flag features 4 diagonal blue stripes, alternating with 3 diagonal silver stripes, which collectively contain 7 distinct geometric shapes. At first glance, these shapes may resemble hearts, especially when coloured red, as they are here. They are actually the stylised leaves of the yellow water lily. When used in heraldry in this manner, they are called Pompeblad in West Frisian or Seeblatt in German. These 7 leaves represent the sea districts of medieval Frisia, which were essentially autonomous. While some sources indicate there were 7 of these lands, other interpretations have it instead being a figure of speech, simply meaning there were many of them. These lily leaves are seen on other flags used in Frisia, for example on the flag of Ommelanden, the parts of Groningen province that surround the eponymous city. While originally subject to the same freedoms as the rest of Frisia, it was in East Frisia that the egalitarian constitution first began to wane, and so over the 14th century, various hereditary chieftains began to assert their dominance and expand their power base over the area. As a result, Europa Universalis IV portrays East Frisia as a monarchy rather than a republic like its western neighbour. While it can be debated on how true this was in 1444, especially considering how power was split amongst several chieftainly families, I understand why this decision was taken, as power was centralising rapidly to the point the territory was made into an imperial county by the Holy Roman Emperor Frederick III in 1464. The first to hold the title of Count of East Frisia was Ulrich of the House of Kirksena. As shouldn't be a surprise by now, the symbol used by East Frisia in-game is taken from the rather striking coat of arms of this family. These arms depict a golden harpy, the bird-woman hybrid originating from Greek mythology. However, it should be noted that, unlike the original Greek harpies, which often had very unpleasant connotations, when used in heraldry, these creatures do not take on any of these connotations, as perhaps best shown by the German name for this heraldic advice, the Jungfrauenadler, or Maiden Eagle. Indeed, it may be more useful to think of these images as representing angels instead. The Kirksena family were resident in the city of Emden until the Emden Revolution of 1595 kicked them out. As a result, the harpy features on the coat of arms of this city, as well as on a number of the other arms of towns in the area. Due to the meandering nature of dynastic connections, a descendant of this harpy also appears on the coat of arms of Liechtenstein in the present day. The final nation to be covered in this episode is the formable nation of the Netherlands, which can be formed by nations with Dutch or Flemish as their primary culture, or, specifically, if they're Burgundy. This represents the Dutch Republic, more properly known as the Republic of the Seven United Netherlands, which in real life got its start with the Union of Utrecht in 1579, which then led to the ratification of the Act of Abjuration declaring its independence in 1581. Unlike many of the other symbols covered so far in this episode, the Netherlands actually uses a real flag, generally called the Prince's Flag. The flag is a horizontal tricolour with stripes in orange, white and blue. These colours were used extensively by William the Silent, the Prince of Orange and main leader of the Dutch Revolt. Dutch armies sporting these colours entered Ghent in 1577, and possibly as early as 1574, the officers of William's armies were wearing brassards in these colours for purposes of distinction. While the historic Principality of Orange and the colour, or for that matter the fruit, don't actually share an etymological connection, it didn't stop the two from being conflated, and thus ended up becoming the national colour of the Netherlands. As for the story of how the Dutch flag evolved into its current version, with a red stripe replacing the orange, there is no clear answer. While this story may admittedly be beyond the scope of this video, one frequently repeated explanation is simply that the orange dye used was too expensive and too unstable, with it ending up fading to the red after prolonged use anyway. The immediate predecessor to the modern Dutch flag is the Statenvlag, which was proclaimed by the States General. The 17th century saw an ongoing conflict between the republican influences of the States General and the more monarchical ideas of the Stadtholder, an office occupied by a member of the House of Orange. The proclamation of this new flag may therefore have been intended to remove representation of that dynasty from national symbols. While I think that the original version of the Prince's flag is quite a handsome one, especially considering how orange is a fairly rare colour to see on flags, it is also important to note that the orange striped flag acquired a number of negative connotations beginning in the 1930s. The National Socialist movement in the Netherlands was a fascist political party founded in the early 1930s, and later becoming Nazi collaborators during the occupation of the Netherlands during the Second World War. They chose the colours of orange, white and blue, as well as the Prince's flag, as a political symbol, and some of these associations with ultranationalist ideologies remain to this day. Apologies, that was a fairly sour note to end the video on, but that should be all the Low Countries flags featured in Europa Universalis IV covered, and hopefully explained to your satisfaction. As always, if I've missed any of them out, then please don't hesitate to get in touch and let me know where I've gone wrong. On that note, as always, I would love to hear what you may have to say about the video, so I look forward to hearing from you in the comment section below. I'm also on Twitter, so you can follow and get in touch with me there if you prefer. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, then please consider liking, sharing the episode, and subscribing to the channel. The next episode is likely to be a pretty big one. I want to cover the remainder of the formable nations. I have already covered all of the formable post-colonial nations, and I've also done a few of the other nations, but a lot still remain and I expect to be jumping all over the world for it. I hope you'll want to join me when I go through them, but also please bear in mind that it may take a while for me to get it finished. Apologies in advance for the delay. Anyway, thank you very much for watching the video, and I hope to see you next time, if not beforehand. Until then though, ciao.